It was a bright, calm morning in Seoul when the first reports started coming in. The news was strange, unsettling, and confusing. The sky above the city, usually clear, was now filled with strange shapes, metallic objects, shining with an almost unnatural light, hovering above the city skyline. At first, no one knew what to make of it. People looked up in disbelief. Some even thought it was some sort of elaborate hoax or viral marketing stunt. But as more and more reports flooded in, and the objects remained in the sky, panic started to spread. In the midst of the chaos, Ji-hoon remained calm. A young military strategist, he had seen his fair share of conflicts and surprises, but nothing could prepare him for what was happening now. He sat in his small office at the Seoul Military Command Center, his eyes fixed on the giant screens in front of him. His fingers hovered over his keyboard, scanning the incoming data. The objects in the sky weren't just strange, they were too perfect, too precise. They had made no attempt to hide their presence, and there was a cold, almost clinical sense about them. The news had confirmed it. They were not from Earth. Ji-hoon's mind raced. What did this mean? He knew that any moment the government would be calling on him and his team to step in. They had trained for this. They had prepared for first contact scenarios with alien species for years. But this felt different. These weren't the typical space invaders from the movies. There was no immediate sign of hostility. But still, Ji-hoon couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Meanwhile, Mira, a scientist from a local research institute, watched the same news broadcast in her small apartment. She had always been curious about the universe beyond Earth, and now that curiosity had turned into a sense of dread. The beings in the sky were unlike anything she had seen in her studies. Their their technology was so advanced it was almost incomprehensible. How could something so perfect exist? She felt a wave of unease wash over her. Within an hour, Ji-hoon was on his way to the command center. His phone buzzed with a message from General Ji-won, the leader of the Earth Defense Forces. Ji-hoon had worked with Ji-won before, and he knew that the general was always one to remain level-headed. But this time, Ji-hoon couldn't tell if Ji-won was calm or just hiding his true feelings. The message was simple. Get to the command center now. The aliens want to speak with you. By the time Ji-hoon arrived, the atmosphere in the command center was tense. Officers moved quickly from one screen to another, sending reports, making calls. Gi-won stood at the front of the room, arms crossed, his face set in stone. Gi-hoon, Gi-won greeted him briefly, his voice steady. I need you to head up the team to monitor the situation. We're receiving an unusual transmission from their ships. Ji-hoon nodded and quickly moved to the screen, scanning the incoming signals. His team of experts worked in silence around him, analyzing the data as it came in. And then it happened. The transmission wasn't just a signal, it was a message. An image of an alien figure appeared on the screen. It was tall, slender, and humanoid, with pale blue skin that shimmered slightly in the light. Its eyes were dark and featureless. But there was a certain intelligence in its gaze. The alien spoke. I am Kyun, the spokesperson for the Elier. We come not as invaders, but as protectors. Our species has observed your planet for many years, and we offer you our assistance. We will ensure your safety and help guide you toward a peaceful future. The message was calm, almost soothing. It wasn't what Ji-hoon had expected. He had imagined a much more threatening or aggressive encounter, but this was different. What do they mean, protectors? Ji-hoon whispered to himself. The more he looked at the image of Kyun, the more uneasy he became. How could anyone claim to protect a planet they had only just arrived on? And why had they waited until now to make contact? Ji-hoon? General Ji-won's voice cut through his thoughts. I need you to establish a line of communication with them. We need more information. And be careful. Ji-hoon nodded again and quickly moved to his workstation, preparing to make the first official contact. But as he did, Mira's face appeared on the screen in front of him. Her image was blurry at first, but as the signal stabilized, her expression became clear. She looked as shocked as he felt. I think we need to talk, Mira said, her voice urgent. I've been analyzing the alien ships from my lab. I don't think they're just here for peace. Ji-hoon frowned. What do you mean? The technology they're showing us, it's not just advanced, Mira explained. It's familiar. Some of it looks like technology that Earth has been developing on its own, but far more refined. I think they've been watching us for a long time, possibly influencing our own advancements without us even realizing it. Ji-hoon's heart skipped a beat. That didn't make sense. If that were true, why hadn't the aliens revealed themselves sooner? Why now? Before he could respond, the screen blinked, and Kyuan's image appeared again, this time with more clarity. His voice was smooth, almost hypnotic. We have observed your planet for many years. Your species has great potential, but also great danger. Our offer is simple. You accept our protection, and we will ensure that no harm comes to your world. In exchange, you will align yourselves with us and share in the future we will build together. There it was. The offer was made. Ji-hoon stared at the screen, trying to make sense of it all. The Elyer wanted something. He could feel it in his gut. There was no such thing as a free offer, especially not from a race this advanced. As the transmission ended, Ji-hoon felt a wave of uncertainty settle over him. The Elyer had promised protection, but at what cost? Were they truly here to help? Or was this just another form of control? He had no answers yet, but one thing was clear. Earth's fate now lay in their hands. And the path forward would not be easy. Get the team together, Ji-hoon said to General Ji-won, his voice steady. We need to investigate this further. I have a feeling we're not getting the whole truth. And so, the first chapter of the Elyer's arrival began, not with war or violence, but with an offer, a simple offer that would soon shake the foundations of everything humanity believed about itself. Ji-hoon stood silently in the war room, staring at the large screen in front of him. The alien transmission had ended just minutes ago, but his mind was still racing with questions. He felt as though the world had just tilted on its axis, and everything he knew about Earth's place in the universe had suddenly changed. The Elyer claimed to be here to help, to protect humanity. But Ji-hoon knew that things weren't always as simple as they seemed. Around him, officers and analysts were buzzing with activity. They were scrambling to analyze every piece of data that had come through the alien's transmission. General Ji-won stood beside him, his face a mask of concentration. He had always been calm, even in the face of adversity, but Ji-hoon could see the tension in his eyes. This was unlike anything they had faced before. We need to act fast, Ji-won said, breaking the silence. We can't just sit here and wait. We need to know exactly what we're dealing with. Ji-hoon nodded in agreement. I'll gather my team. We need to investigate their technology and figure out how it's possible for them to offer protection on such a scale. Ji-won looked at him closely. Be careful. We don't know their true intentions yet. Ji-hoon left the room and made his way to the secure communications room. As he walked through the hallways of the military base, he could feel the weight of the moment pressing on him. The world was watching, waiting for Earth to make its move. The future of humanity was on the line. Inside the communications room, Mira was already waiting for him. She had been the first to raise concerns about the Elyer's technology, and Ji-hoon knew she would be a valuable ally in uncovering the truth. She was already looking at a screen filled with data, her eyes moving rapidly over the information. Anything new? Ji-hoon asked, as he took a seat beside her. Mira looked up, her expression serious. I've been running simulations based on their tech. There's something off about it. It's too perfect. Like they've been guiding our development for years without us even knowing. Ji-hoon leaned in closer, studying the data. What do you mean? Their technology is unlike anything we've ever seen. But there are traces of familiar patterns in it, patterns that match some of the advanced systems we've been developing ourselves. And there's more. I've found encrypted signals that suggest they've been here longer than we think. I believe they've been influencing our progress from the shadows. And Ji-hoon's heart sank. So, they've been manipulating us this whole time? Mira nodded. I think so. They've been watching us closely, possibly feeding us technology in small doses to make us dependent on them. And now they're offering us protection, but at what cost? Ji-hoon stood up, his mind racing. We need to get to the bottom of this. The Elyer may be offering us peace, but there's no way we can trust them blindly. We need to find out what they're really after. Myra agreed. I've been trying to trace the signals they've been sending. Their communication methods are far more advanced than anything we've encountered before. It's almost as if they've been hiding their true motives behind layers of false data. Just then, a voice crackled through the comms system. It was General Giwan Jihoon, Mira. We've received a new message from the Elier. They're requesting a meeting. They want to discuss their proposal in person. Kuhn's heart skipped a beat. This was it. The moment of truth. He exchanged a glance with Mira, who seemed as uneasy as he felt. Are you sure this is a good idea? Jihoon asked into the comms. We don't have much of a choice, Jihoon replied. We need to engage with them, but we need to be careful. They may be offering help, but we need to know what their true intentions are. You two are the best we have. I trust you'll handle this. Jihoon nodded grimly. We'll be ready. He turned to Myra. We need to go to the meeting. But we also need to be prepared. We can't let our guard down, Mira agreed. I'll prepare everything on my end. We need to be able to analyze their tech in real time. The two of them made their way to the meeting site, a large, open plaza in the center of Seoul. It was the perfect place for a public display of peace. Thousands of people had already gathered, watching the strange ships hovering above the city. There was a sense of awe in the air, but Jihoon could also sense the underlying fear. People didn't know whether to trust these visitors or to be afraid of them as they arrived at the meeting site. Jihoon couldn't help but notice the contrast between the Elier's technology and the people gathered below. The ships gleamed in the sky, their sleek, smooth surfaces reflecting the sunlight. There was an air of elegance to them, but it also felt like they were out of place, as though they didn't quite belong. A figure descended from one of the ships, its movements fluid and graceful. It was Kwon, the spokesperson they had seen on the screen earlier. Jihoon felt a cold shiver run down his spine as he stared at the alien. Kwon was tall, with pale blue skin that shimmered under the light. His eyes, dark and unblinking, seemed to pierce through Jihoon, as if he could see straight into his soul. Kwon spoke in a calm, soothing voice. We have come to offer our protection. Your world is fragile, and we have the power to shield you from harm. We seek only your cooperation so that together we can build a future of peace. Jihoon's mind raced as he tried to keep his composure. Why now? He asked. Why offer protection now when we've managed to survive on our own for so long? Kwon tilted his head slightly, as if considering the question. Your species has potential, but you are still young. Your world is filled with danger, both from within and from beyond. We offer our help because we believe in your future. We wish to guide you. Jihoon's heart pounded in his chest. There it was again, the same words, the same calm demeanor. But Jihoon wasn't fooled. There had to be more to this than just a simple offer of peace. You've been watching us, Jihoon said, his voice steady but firm. For how long? Kwon's expression remained unchanged. We have observed your world for many years. We have seen the potential for greatness, but we have also seen the threats that could destroy your civilization. Jihoon didn't believe him. The Elier had been here longer than they were letting on, and he knew they had to have an agenda. But he needed more information. He needed to know what they were really after. We'll need to discuss this with our leaders, Jihoon said. We can't make a decision without understanding more about your technology and your true intentions. Kwon smiled faintly, a strange knowing smile. Of course. We understand. But know this, Jihoon. Our offer is genuine. We are here to help. Your world does not have to face its challenges alone. With that, Kwon turned and walked back toward his ship. Jihoon watched him go, his mind spinning. He had learned nothing new, but the tension in his gut told him that this was far from over as he turned to leave the plaza. Mira walked beside him, her face filled with worry. What now? Jihoon looked up at the ships in the sky. Now we prepare. We can't trust them yet, but we can't ignore them either. We need to find out the truth before it's too late. The days that followed were filled with meetings, investigations, and a growing sense of unease. Jihoon had spent hours analyzing the Elier's technology, but there was still so much that didn't make sense. The more he learned, the more questions he had. The signals they had intercepted earlier seemed to be encrypted in ways he could barely understand. And yet there was something familiar about them, like a whisper in the back of his mind. Mira had been working nonstop alongside him, her fingers flying across the keys as she decoded the alien transmissions. She hadn't gotten much sleep, but Ji-hoon knew she wouldn't rest until she had answers. They had made some progress, but every answer seemed to lead to more questions. In the days since their first meeting with Q-on, the Elior had continued to stay in orbit around Earth, offering their protection with increasingly reassuring words. But Ji-hoon couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Claimed to be here to protect humanity, but their methods, their technology, and their timing felt too perfect. There had to be a hidden agenda. One afternoon, Ji-hoon sat alone in his office, staring at a map of the world. It had been a week since the Elior had first arrived, and yet no one seemed to question their intentions. Governments around the world were in talks with the aliens, preparing to align with them. While some of the public was cautious, others welcomed the idea of a powerful ally in the sky. The Elior were offering peace, and many saw this as a chance to unite humanity under a single banner. But Ji-hoon wasn't convinced. His thoughts were interrupted by a sudden knock on the door. He looked up to see Mira standing in the doorway, holding a tablet in her hands. Her face was pale, and there was an urgent look in her eyes. "What is it?" Ji-hoon asked, already sensing the gravity of the situation. Mira stepped inside and handed him the tablet. "I found something." Ji-hoon took the tablet and studied the screen. It was a diagram of one of the Elior ships, showing intricate details of their design. At first, it seemed like just another piece of technology they had managed to decipher. But as Ji-hoon looked closer, he saw something that made his heart skip a beat. "There's a hidden compartment," Ji-hoon muttered. "A part of the ship we haven't been able to identify before." "What is this?" Mira nodded, her face serious. "I think it's some kind of weapon, or at least that's what the energy readings are suggesting. It's been hidden in plain sight, but I've managed to trace the signals back to this specific location inside the ship. They've been masking it." Ji-hoon's mind raced. He had known there had to be something more, something they weren't being told. The Elior had promised protection, but now it seemed like they had been hiding something dangerous. It wasn't just about offering help. It was about controlling Earth. "This isn't just about peace," Ji-hoon said, his voice low. "This is about power. They've been keeping something from us." Mira's eyes met his. "We need to know what they're really planning. If they have a weapon like this, we can't just sit back and let them take control." Ji-hoon nodded. "We need to act fast. We can't wait for them to make the next move." Without another word, he stood up, grabbing his jacket. They had to get to the source of the problem before it was too late. The Elior had made their move, and now it was time for humanity to make its own. They quickly gathered a small team of trusted individuals, including Seo Jin, a former fighter pilot who was familiar with alien technology, and Ho Seok, a hacker who had been working alongside Mira to decode the Elior's transmissions. Together, they would infiltrate the Elior ship and uncover the truth about the weapon they had hidden. The mission was risky, but it was their only chance to stop the Elior before they could implement their plan. Ji-hoon knew that if they didn't act now, Earth would be at the mercy of the Elior and they might never get another opportunity to learn the truth. The team made their way to a small facility outside the city, where a secret shuttle had been prepared. The mission was not officially sanctioned, and if they were caught, it could mean the end of their careers or worse. But Ji-hoon wasn't thinking about that. He was thinking about the future of Earth, about the lives that were at stake, as the shuttle lifted off. Ji-hoon stared out the window, watching the skyline of Seoul disappear beneath them. His thoughts were a whirlwind of fear, uncertainty, and determination. The Elior had offered protection, but Ji-hoon knew that they weren't here to help. They were here to control. The journey to the Elior ship took longer than expected. The ship was still hovering in the atmosphere, but it was heavily guarded. Ji-hoon's team had to stay out of sight, avoiding detection by the Elior's advanced surveillance systems. Every move had to be calculated, every decision carefully considered. Couldn't afford any mistakes. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the shuttle reached the Elior ship. The massive structure loomed before them, its sleek surface reflecting the light of Earth below. It was both beautiful and terrifying at the same time. a perfect example of the Ellier's technological prowess. Ji-hoon and his team suited up, preparing for the most dangerous part of the mission. They would be entering the ship through a small, hidden airlock one that had been identified by Mira during her analysis of the alien signals. It was their only way in without alerting the Ellier. Once inside, the team moved quickly and silently, navigating the vast, empty corridors of the ship. The interior was just as strange as the exterior, filled with glowing panels and complex machinery that seemed to hum with life. Ji-hoon couldn't help but marvel at the technology, but he didn't let himself get distracted. They had a job to do. As they moved deeper into the ship, they reached the section that Mira had pinpointed the location of the hidden compartment. Ji-hoon's heart raced as they approached the area. This was it. They were about to uncover the truth. They found the entrance hidden behind a series of metallic panels. Ji-hoon activated the override that Mira had worked on, and the panel slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, they found what they had been searching for, a massive, complex device that seemed to be designed for destruction. The weapon was unlike anything Ji-hoon had ever seen. It was a combination of energy-based and physical components, a fusion of technology so advanced that it almost seemed impossible. It was clear now that the Ellier had not come to protect Earth. They had come to dominate it, just as Ji-hoon was. About to take a closer look, a voice echoed through the ship. It was Kine. "We knew you would find it eventually," he said, his voice calm, almost amused. "But it is too late now. Earth is already ours." Ji-hoon froze, his heart pounding in his chest. They had been caught. The Ellior had known all along that they would try to uncover the truth. Ji-hoon's heart skipped a beat as Kyun's voice echoed through the ship. The calm, almost casual tone of the alien's words was chilling. It was as if he had been waiting for them to uncover the truth all along. They had been caught, and there was no turning back now. The team froze. They had only seconds to react. The door to the chamber where the weapon was stored slid shut with a sharp hiss, trapping them inside. Ji-hoon's mind raced. This was it. The Ellior had been playing them from the start. The weapon wasn't just some advanced technology. It was part of a larger plan to take control of Earth. The peaceful offer they had made was just a cover for something much darker. "Don't move," Ji-hoon whispered to his team, his voice barely audible. "We need to stay calm and think this through." Seojin, the former fighter pilot, was the first to respond. "They knew we would find this," he said, his voice steady. "This was all a trap. They want us to see this." Mira stepped forward, her eyes locked on the weapon in the center of the room. She was the one who had helped find it, and now it was clear that the Ellior had no intention of letting Earth remain free. "This weapon," she said, her voice shaking slightly, "it's designed to control us, to force us to bend to their will." Ji-hoon nodded grimly. "We can't let them use it. We need to find a way to stop them." He turned to Hoseok, the hacker who had been working with Mira. "Can you disable the weapon?" he asked, his voice filled with urgency. Hoseok's fingers hovered over his console, his face illuminated by the glow of the screen. "I can try, but their systems are far more advanced than anything we've encountered. I don't know if I'll be able to break through." "We have no choice," Ji-hoon said, his voice tight with determination. "Do what you can." As Hoseok began typing rapidly, Ji-hoon's thoughts raced. This wasn't just about stopping a weapon. It was about saving humanity. The Ellior had already shown that they were willing to manipulate and control Earth. If they succeeded in using this weapon, there would be no stopping them. They would have Earth under their thumb. There would be nothing anyone could do. The room was silent, except for the sound of Hoseok's frantic typing. Ji-hoon could feel the pressure building, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. He glanced around at his team, all of them working together, trying to figure out a way to stop the Ellior's plan. Then, suddenly, the room filled with a new voice that sent a chill down Ji-hoon's spine. "You are too late," Kyun said, his image appearing on a nearby screen. "You should not have come here. Earth is already under our protection. The weapon is merely a safeguard, a means of ensuring that you will accept our help." The screen flickered for a moment, and Kyun's face twisted into something darker. "You are foolish to resist us. We have given you a chance to join us, to thrive in peace. But if you continue to fight, we will have no choice but to use force. Ji-hoon stepped forward, his fists clenched. We won't accept your protection. You're not here to help us. You're here to control us. We've been surviving on our own, and we'll keep fighting to stay free. Kyun's expression softened, almost as if he were pitying Ji-hoon. You misunderstand. We do not wish to control you. We wish to guide you, to help you evolve. Your species is still so young, so fragile. Without our guidance, you will continue to destroy yourselves. We've survived without you. Ji-hoon shouted, his voice rising. We don't need you to control us. We'll make our own future. For a moment, there was silence. Then Kyun's face grew stern. You will regret this, Ji-hoon. You will regret resisting. With that, the screen flickered off, leaving the team standing in the dark room, filled with tension. Ji-hoon's heart was pounding in his chest. They had made their stand, but they still had a long way to go. The Ellure had made their move. Now, it was time for Earth to fight back. Hosiak was still typing away furiously at his console. I've almost got it, he muttered. The weapon systems are encrypted, but I'm breaking through. Just a little longer. Ji-hoon nodded. We don't have much time. As the seconds ticked by, Ji-hoon couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. The Ellure had the advantage, and they were no longer trying to hide their true intentions. They had shown their hand, and it was up to Ji-hoon and his team to stop them before it was too late. Suddenly, the ship's lights flickered, and the sound of an alarm began to blare through the corridors. Ji-hoon's stomach dropped. The Ellure were preparing to activate the weapon. We need to move now, Ji-hoon shouted. Hosiak, can you disable it or not? I'm trying. Hosiak yelled back. The system is fighting me every step of the way. If I don't shut it down now, they'll activate it, and we'll have no way to stop it. Ji-hoon grabbed the nearest weapon, a small but powerful energy pistol, and motioned for the team to follow him. We're getting out of here. Now. The team rushed toward the exit, but as they reached the door, it slammed shut with a deafening sound. A bright red light filled the room, and a voice boomed over the ship's intercom. You cannot escape. The weapon will be activated in 5 minutes. Surrender now, and you will be spared. Resist, and you will be destroyed. Ji-hoon's mind raced. They were trapped. The Ellure had them cornered, and the weapon was about to go live. But he refused to give up. They couldn't surrender. Not now. Not ever. Find another way out. Gi-hoon ordered. Mira was already scanning the room, looking for an exit. There's a ventilation shaft, she said, pointing to a small vent near the back wall. It's not much, but it's our only chance. Ji-hoon didn't hesitate. Let's go. The team moved quickly, reaching the vent and forcing it open. As they crawled through the narrow shaft, Ji-hoon's mind was focused on one thing, getting out and stopping the Ellure. They had no idea what kind of weapon the Ellure had hidden on this ship. But they knew one thing for sure. It wasn't just about peace. It was about control. They had to stop them before it was too late. The ventilation shaft was narrow and dark, with only the faint hum of the ship's systems echoing in the background. Ji-hoon led the way, his heart pounding in his chest as he moved through the tight space. Behind him, Mira, Seojin, Hosiak, and the others followed, their movements quick but careful. They didn't have much time. The countdown for the weapon was ticking down, and they had to find a way to stop it before it was too late. As they crawled through the vent, Ji-hoon's mind raced. They were deep within the Ellure ship now, far away from the control room where they had discovered the weapon. The ship was enormous, a maze of metal and glowing lights, and it felt like they were walking through a living thing. The walls seemed to pulse with energy, as if the ship itself was aware of their presence. We're getting close, Mira whispered ahead of him. There should be a maintenance door just up ahead. It'll lead us to a control room. If we can reach it, we might be able to override the weapon's activation. Ji-hoon nodded, trying to quiet his racing thoughts. Mira was their best chance at figuring out how to disable the weapon. She was the one who had decoded the Ellure's technology, and without her, they wouldn't have gotten this far. But time was running out. Every minute they spent crawling through the vents brought them closer to the moment. When the weapon would be activated, finally, after what felt like an eternity, the team reached the maintenance door. Hosiok quickly worked on the override panel, his fingers flying over the buttons. There was no time to waste. The door clicked open, and the team burst into the control room. It was a small, dimly lit room filled with strange consoles and alien technology. Screens flickered to life as they entered, casting an eerie glow over the walls. At the center of the room was a large terminal, the main control for the ship. Ji-hoon moved quickly to it, his eyes scanning the readouts as he tried to make sense of the alien symbols and code. "Can you disable the weapon?" Ji-hoon asked Mira, his voice tight with urgency. Mira stepped forward, her face set in concentration. She was already scanning the system, her fingers moving rapidly over the controls. "I'll try, but this is going to take a few minutes. The system is heavily encrypted." Ji-hoon nodded, glancing over at Hosiok, who was keeping watch at the door. They were running out of time. The ship's alarm was still blaring, and the countdown was getting closer. They had to hurry. Mira's voice broke through his thoughts. "I've found the weapons control interface. It's linked to the main reactor. If we can disconnect it from the power source, it won't be able to fire." "Do what Ji-hoon said." He felt a small sense of relief. They were so close now. But even as he said the words, a loud crash echoed through the room. Ji-hoon whipped around to see a group of Elyar soldiers pouring into the room. They were fast, their movements fluid and precise. They were armed. "I told you that resistance was futile," Kyun's voice echoed through the room. The alien appeared on a nearby screen, his expression cold and unreadable. "You cannot stop us." Ji-hoon's heart sank, but he didn't have time to hesitate. "Mira, finish it. Hosiok, cover us." Seo Jin and Ji-hoon moved quickly, taking up defensive positions as the Elyar soldiers advanced. Seo Jin, a trained fighter, drew his weapon and fired, sending out a burst of energy. The soldiers ducked and scattered, but Seo Jin was quick to follow up with another shot. Hosiok was at the door, his back against the wall, watching for any reinforcements. The tension in the room was unbearable. Every second felt like a lifetime. Mira's fingers were flying over the controls, her face etched with concentration. "We need more time." Mira shouted over the noise of the battle. "We don't have it!" Ji-hoon yelled back. He fired another shot, knocking one of the soldiers back. But more kept coming, and they were closing in fast. "Just hold them off a little longer," Mira cried out, her voice filled with determination. "I'm almost there." Ji-hoon turned back to the incoming soldiers, his mind racing. They couldn't let the Elyar gain control of the room. They couldn't let them activate the weapon. This was their only chance to stop the invasion. Seo Jin fired again, taking out another soldier, but the Elyar weren't backing down. They were too well-trained, too coordinated. Ji-hoon could feel the pressure mounting as they moved closer and closer. His weapon was running low on energy, and he knew they couldn't keep fighting forever. "Mira," Ji-hoon shouted. "How much longer?" "I'm almost there," Mira responded, her voice strained. "Just a few more seconds." Ji-hoon's mind raced. If they didn't make it, Earth was lost. The Elyar would take over, and there would be nothing they could do. The weight of the situation was unbearable, but he pushed it aside. They couldn't give up now, not after everything they had fought for. Hosiok fired at the door, knocking back a few of the soldiers who were attempting to enter. Seo Jin was moving around the room, keeping the Elyar soldiers at bay, but they were outnumbered. Ji-hoon couldn't help but feel the hopelessness creeping in. They couldn't keep this up forever. Finally, Mira spoke again, her voice barely audible. "I've done it. The weapon is disconnected. It won't fire." Ji-hoon's heart leaped in his chest. "We did it." But just as he said the words, the ship's alarm grew louder. The floor beneath them shook, and the lights flickered. Ji-hoon looked up to see the entire room begin to hum with energy. Something was wrong. The weapon's offline, Mira said, but there was a look of fear in her eyes. "But something else is powering up. It's not the weapon, it's something else. Something worse." Ji-hoon felt a cold chill run down his spine. "What is it?" Before Myra could respond, a loud crash echoed through the room as the wall on the far side exploded inward. The Elyar had activated a backup system. The room was plunged into chaos as the backup weapons fired, sending shockwaves through the ship. Mira. Jihoon shouted, but his words were drowned out by the deafening noise. We need to leave, now. Seo Jin and Hoseok were already moving, firing back at the advancing LER soldiers. Mira grabbed Jihoon's arm, pulling him toward the door. Come on, we can't stay here. The team ran, their footsteps echoing in the hallways of the LER ship. The ship was shaking now, as if it were fighting back. The walls were buckling, the lights flashing wildly. Jihoon didn't know how much longer they had before the ship completely fell apart. They reached the shuttle bay, where their only hope of escape waited. But as they ran toward the shuttle, the door slammed shut, locking them inside. The shuttle was their last chance. We're trapped, Jihoon shouted, but Mira wasn't giving up. She quickly hacked into the shuttle's control system. I can override the doors. Just give me a second. Jihoon looked over his shoulder. The LER soldiers were closing in fast. They didn't have much time. Come on, Jihoon urged. Mira worked as quickly as she could, her fingers flying over the console. The seconds felt like hours, but finally the door opened. They rushed inside, and Mira slammed her hand on the control panel. Initiating the shuttle's launch sequence, the shuttle shot into space, leaving the LER ship behind. Jihoon looked out the window as they fled, watching the massive ship explode in a burst of light. The LER had failed. Earth had won. They were free.